So he takes out a few people, and he uses me as a human shield. And I'm in his arm, and he's got a gun, and he's walking. And we practiced that scene many times during rehearsal. But on that night, when the camera's rolling and they call action, he just cranked it. So I took about maybe 5, 6 steps, and I fainted. He choked me out. But luckily, he didn't drop me. He held on to me. So like when I woke up, he goes, "Simon, are you acting or did I choke you out?" I said, "Tom, you choked me out, man."
This week on Action Talks, I'm pleased to welcome Simon Rhee. Simon is a pioneer in American martial arts cinema with the Best of the Best series under his belt, and lately he's been stunt coordinator on the Lucifer show and American Horror Story. Simon, thank you so much for being on Action Talks.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
I think I probably share a lot of the same memories with viewers where I used to go to the video store and I would go down the line and I would watch all of the martial art films, and Best of the Best was always at the beginning because it starts with B. so those were some of the first ones that I saw. And I think that one of the reasons that it was so inspirational for me and for many growing up watching action films was that these seemed to be these were like very accessible action films, and they had kind of an independent spirit about them, and they felt different than the other B films at the time. They're shot differently. You could see the action. And it had a really cool message at the end. So I'm not going to bloviate too much more about Best of the Best. But can you just talk briefly about what it was that brought about the films like Best of the Best and your involvement in them?
So when all this kung fu movies start to come into United States, Five Fingers of Death, and after that, there were so many kung fu movies. But it had kung fu, it had martial arts, but it never had any good moral stories behind it. It's always revenge. There was violence and drugs and sex, and sometimes they would just fight so they could put in a fight in a movie. And that's not what true martial art is all about. And me and my brother Philip, when we were watching all these movies, we were kind of disappointed. Like, this is not how real martial art should be. And I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that happened in Korea when I went to compete, like back in 1975. I saw he was fighting, and he received an axe kick to his face on his cheek right here. And he split his face just wide open. And it wasn't too deep, so they just put some bandages over it. And then about an hour later, he had to go in and fight again, and this time he had to go fight, I think, against the Navy or somebody. So he goes to his general that's all sitting on one side, and he salutes, and he goes, "I will bring back victory for the army." And I was watching that, and I was like, "Oh, what a spirit!" And then he got on the ring, and then he grabbed his bandage and just ripped it off, and he went in there to fight. And I was like, I had chills. And I said, that's true martial arts right there. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting. He's representing army, and that's in his heart. He's willing to give up his whole life, for the army. So those are the kind of things that we felt. And so one day Philip started writing the script with that in mind. And that's how Best of the Best came about.
Yeah, was that you get an axe kick similarly at the end of Best of the Best in the final fight? Was that inspired by that moment?
Not really. I didn't think about it till now. I mean, really, but because in Taekwondo we always use axe kick, so we knew we had to put it in this, sooner or later.
Well, one of the things that I think was also unique about it was that you're actually making contact. There's some hits in there, and this was something that maybe was considered unsafe for a lot of actors doing martial art films. Was there a difficulty in convincing insurance producers and whatnot for you guys to go ahead and hit each other?
Well, not really, because like there was a moment where I threw a spinning heel kick to my brother's face, and I knew, and he knew that I was going to make contact. So I wasn't going to hit him with my heel. So I hit him in the bottom of my, and he had a mouthpiece on, and he sprayed his hair with lots of water so that when he gets hit in the face, we see that water just flying all over the place. So all the hits that we were going to do was pretty much like choreographed beforehand. So, and we knew how to do it safely, so we didn't have any problem with the insurance companies.
Hmm. So they trusted you. I mean, to them, to the average person, maybe it still looks scary, even though you guys are in control.
Yeah.
The fights are all shot kind of wide. The editing isn't very quick. Was this a style that was deliberate for you guys? Was it something that you were looking at the other films at the time? Where did you come up with the stylistic choice there?
We wanted to show our techniques, and we didn't want to use too many cuts also. And especially me and my brother, we've been doing martial arts since we were like 10 years old. So, and we fought each other. We sparred each other so many times. It was just a piece of cake for us. So I say, hey, Philip, I'm going to do this. You do that. Okay. I'm going to do this technique. Then you do this technique. And I'm going to hit you here. You hit me here. And it was just like that. So we wanted to show our techniques. We didn't want to, close up or, fast editing and things like that.
Yeah, you guys. It wasn't your first film together. Obviously, you had done. Were you both together in? I don't know. I don't want to embarrass you, but Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave.
That was our first movie, 1975. I came to visit my taekwondo instructor, Master Jun Chong, in Los Angeles. And at that time, Philip and I lived in San Francisco. And we came to LA during Thanksgiving time to visit our aunt. And, we called him just to say hello and pay respect. And he goes, "Oh, I'm glad you guys are here. Tomorrow I'm shooting a movie at Long Beach Junkyard. You guys come." So, yes, sir. And we went. And we shot this little fight scene. And I mean, it was completely independent film. The director was from Korea. And we got a filet of fish for lunch. we didn't get paid. But, it was that movie got released on Hollywood Boulevard the year after. And we were able to see it on a big movie screen. And I think that's how we got hooked.
I see. What was it like seeing yourself for the first time in a film?
It was really exciting, even though it was only for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. Just being able to see yourself kick and all this fighting techniques, because we didn't have video cameras back then, so you couldn't really see yourself. So that was like the first time seeing it, and it was really exciting.
Had you been watching, kung fu theater at the time, and were you inspired by the martial art films that were coming out in the States at the time?
Oh, absolutely, Bruce Lee movies. And like when you see Bruce Lee, I'm seeing all his taekwondo kicks, and I'm going, hey, I could do that. And so I think that's where everything just started happening inside.
Yeah, what did you that is an interesting it was an interesting time because the whole idea of kicking during the Bruce Lee era, 1968 to 1973 or so, kicking was very
Hmm.
new.
Right.
I scoured the archives looking for Japanese movies, Korean movies, Hong Kong movies where people would kick before Bruce Lee, and there was almost nothing. Even in Japan, they were teaching Shotokan since the 20s or since the 30s, whenever that was. No kicking movies, almost nothing. And suddenly, you have, Americans coming into from Korea, bringing Tong Sudo and whatnot, and doing kicking in America in tournaments. But still, it's not in movies. It's not until
Hmm.
1971 with Billy Jack and
Was
Bruce
that
Lee. Yeah,
Billy Jack was 71?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
same year as
Yeah.
Big
Okay.
Boss.
Cool. Hmm.
So the same
Yep.
year, you have these two kickers suddenly coming. One is Bong-Soo-han, the kicker, and then
Hmm.
Bruce Lee. Um, what was your kind of, because you were taking Taekwondo at the time? Were
Hmm.
you? What was your perception of kicking in cinema at that time?
Well, I felt like, just like you said, you didn't see that many people kicking until Bruce Lee came to the screen. And like I said before, oh, I could do that. I could do that, and I wanted to do it. And then when I moved to Los Angeles back in 1976, there was a Taekwondo instructor named Chung Lee who wrote Dynamic Kicks. Do you have that book by any
I have
chance?
that kick. I have that book. I actually have that book.
Yes, right. And I was like, and I remember the photographer was, and he did like the extra exposures, I guess, so you could kind of see the trails on the book. And that's the first time you see a picture with like trails. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's kicks are so clean. And I wanted to be even better than Chung Lee because he was like my age. And he was Taekwondo, I was Taekwondo. I just moved to LA. But I threw like almost 1,000 kicks every night at Master Jun Chung's studio after I finished teaching, and and then like in 1980, Black Belt magazine picked me for having the most picturesque technique in the nation. So I feel like I accomplished what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be able to put that into the movies. And my kicks and my brother's kicks, my brother likes to do. Master Jun Chung calls it extension kicks. I guess in regular tournament style, uh, you jump with both legs at the same time, like a hop. It's like they call it hopping kicks, I guess. And my brother was really, really good at that, you know. And so I thought, you feel like you have this special type of kick that you like to do, and I have this special types of kick that I like to do. And if one day if we could put this in a movie, it would be awesome. And yeah, and we were able to do that in Best of the Best.
What was the kicking culture like at the time? Were there 540s and 720s back then?
No, not at all. I mean, people were impressed if you threw a spinning heel kick, right? So, uh, what I wanted to do is I wanted to add a jump spinning heel, ground spinning heel, and things like that, which people hasn't seen that much at that time. And also, um, a lot of people give me a credit for doing a Superman punch in the movies. You remember that opening scene where I do a Superman punch, and like they said, I'm the first person who did that punch in the movies, and the UFC people start doing it. But that credit should go to Master He Il Cho because he's the one who told me to do that technique in the opening scene. So there you go.
All right. Heel Cho has created the Superman punch. I think I get asked to do that move a lot, and I'm gonna correct anybody who says that now and say, "You mean the heel choke kick punch? Is that what you mean?" Um,
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
I don't know when Superman first did that punch. I don't know if he ever did that punch.
I mean, why do they call it Superman punch?
No idea. I don't know where that came from. I guess the shape that your body, but that's not even a Superman shape.
I know. I mean, Master Cho called it do a jump reverse punch. So that's how he called it, jump reverse punch.
Yeah, that is a very mechanical way of explaining it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in going back to Best of the Best now, um, when you guys were designing the action for this, was it all done on the spot? Did you previs? Was there even previs technology available to you guys back then?
What's previous? We didn't know what that was. So what we did is like all the Korean fighters were actual martial artists, and all the American fighters, only my brother and Chris Penn knew a little bit of martial arts, and all the other guys were actors. So we relied a lot on their stunt doubles, and like I would tell, like, okay, Chris Penn, you have to fight with this guy DK Jang. You guys go ahead and put your fight together, and then Hoshik Park, you put your fight together with this guy. You put your fight together with this guy, and like so they would kind of put the fights together, and I would like look at it and okay, let's change this, let's do this, let's do that. So I was able to do that, and also Philip would come in and give his recommendations too. And on the first movie, Philip trained Eric Roberts, and I oversaw all the other stuff.
What kind of training was needed to get someone like Eric Roberts up to speed? Because he looks good. I mean, and Chris Penn obviously is. I don't know. He looks so natural. Even just the way that he holds the way that he holds a fighting stance, you can tell that this guy actually has like some martial arts experience. But what was the overall training for them?
So Eric Roberts had, I don't know if you know this, but he had a motorcycle accident a few years before Best of the Best. So he could not do any type of like roundhouse kick or spinning kick. Everything has to be straightforward type of stuff. So every time we had to do anything spinning or roundhouse, we had to use a double. And we didn't know that when we signed on Eric Roberts. So we had to like really work carefully to make that happen. And my friend James Liu, he fought Eric Roberts, and he was really great. And yes, that's how we made that work.
What was your process when it came to designing the shots for the action? Were you thinking of the camera as they were blocking out the action? Were you thinking of the edit?
Eric, to be honest with you, I didn't know too much about camera angles at that time because I think Best of the Best was like my third or fourth movie at that time. So I just knew that you had to line the camera up to make the hit look like a hit. That's all I knew, but I didn't know too much about all the camera angles like I know now. So yeah, I relied heavily on our DP at that time.
And the director Robert Radler, he went on and did Power Rangers. Was he helpful in designing some of the camera angles as well?
Not really. Robert would, tell us what looks good, what looks bad, but he was not a martial artist. So, actually he was an editor before he was a director. And Philip hired him and gave him a chance to direct this film because Philip liked how he edited things. So that was his strong point. So that's how he became our director.
I mean, it's interesting because when you, as a director, if you have been an editor, you kind of know what shots you need, and you kind of have a workflow around thinking about the edits. So this is conjecture, but the editing in that film is very relaxed, and it's very kind of pleasing to watch for a martial artist because we're not struggling to figure out what's going on. And that's what's so nice about a film like this. And it wasn't, that style was not copied very often, unfortunately. They would, even with a talented martial artist in the 80s and 90s, they would still kind of over edit and probably overshoot, even though their technique might have been totally fine. But I don't know, maybe that's why, because he was an editor as a director.
Yeah.
When you were shooting these action scenes, how much time did you have to shoot an action scene? So, for example, your fight at the end against Philip.
I believe I had day and a half to shoot the whole fight scene with me and Philip, and the other half was about walking, giving the medal, crying, doing my lines, and that took a while because that was the really important part of the movie, and they wanted to make sure they capture it. And I must have done that crying scene about 10 times. And like by about 5 or 6 take, I was running out of tears. So I was struggling, and then my brother came over and gave me a nice hug and told me he loved me, and he goes, "I know you could do this, Simon." And he walked away, and that just touched my heart, and I was able to cry like 4 or 5 more times after that.
Yeah, the typical 80s film, I guess we would have expected you to die because you're the bad guy. We would have expected that. And I think going in I expected it. I expected the Van Damme neck crunch, which happens in the sequel. Spoiler alert. But
Uh-huh.
but in this one, this is actually a very powerful moment, and it's strange to talk about a B film. Excuse me for calling it a B film. That is a fair kind of categorization of it, right? But to talk about it as having a sort of touching ending, because as a martial artist, you can really associate with this sentiment, because everybody is fighting for what they believe in, and so it humanizes the villain. And what drove the decision to humanize you as the villain of the film?
If you look at a lot of Korean dramas, uh, they like to move the audience. They want the audience to feel something in their heart, and that was always in Philip's mind. You know, if we make this movie, we have to make it so that audience would feel something. You know, Philip didn't want to make a movie where you just go eat some popcorn, look at the action. Okay, let's go home. He didn't want to do that. So, I mean, I got to give all the credit to my brother to coming up with that ending. And another interesting thing about the ending is Sally Kirkland, who was the American coach. I was supposed to go up to Philip and speak Korean and give him the medal. And Sally Kirkland was going to translate it in English. But on the day, Sally wasn't feeling good. So Philip came up to me and he goes, "Simon, you have to do this scene in the broken English." And I've been rehearsing, with Korean, for like days and days. And all of a sudden, like, oh my God, I got to do this in broken English now. But I think that worked better for the film. If I did it in Korean, she translated it, I think it would have lost that power, you know. So somehow, it worked better that way.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of the other stunt work you were doing at the time. One that stuck out was Kentucky Fried Movie. Kentucky Fried Movie is listed on there. I think it's one of the greatest martial art films of all time. What's your memory of doing Kentucky Fried Movie? A Fistful of Yen in particular.
We were hired as a special ability extras. And we were supposed to come out and do some martial arts in the background. And there was a moment where, Master Pong Su-han has to yell out all these Chinese names to go out and fight. And Master Pong Su-han couldn't come up with the Chinese names. So he goes, "Simon, can you give me some names?" So I said, "Master Han, this is comedy. Just start, saying Chinese food." So he goes, "That's a great idea."
Oh,
So, so he started calling out all these,
Egg Foo Young.
things. Exactly.
That was your idea.
홍초, 밀초, 김치, 짜장면, 차오면, 무수포.
Yeah. So, so it worked.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry. There's not much martial art comedy nowadays, and just thinking about that
Yeah.
it kills me.
Right after Best of the Best, they hired me to do Double Impact with Jean-Claude Van Damme as a stuntman. And this is how naive I was. Oh, they hired me. I think I'm a martial artist, so they're going to have me fight Jean-Claude Van Damme is what I thought. So I go to San Pedro and we go inside this ship, and I'm supposed to get shot by a machine gun and hit my back on the steel rail and fall forward. So while I was rehearsing, like I hit my back on the rail and it really hurt. So one of the veteran stuntmen goes, "Simon, where's your back pad?" I'm going like, "What's a back pad?" That's how naive I was. And they said, "Oh yeah, if you're doing stunt, you need knee pads, elbow pads, cub, all that stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay." So right after that day, I went out and bought all that stuff and start using it. And even like I'm supposed to be holding a gun right in front of me, and then the squid went off. And when the squid goes off, all the blood comes out. So I'm playing dead, and I'm looking at my hand, and I see all this red stuff on my hand. And I'm going, "Is this my blood or is this fake blood?" I didn't know the difference. I was like so scared at the first time. And then, I found that it was a fake blood. So I was like, "Oh, good." And
Yeah.
and then after that, I got hired to do stunt and acting as a Universal Soldiers. And that's when I met Jean-Claude, and I got to spar with him a little bit. And then after we finished sparring, Jean-Claude goes, "I like the way you kick. I'm going to send my kids to your school." So I started teaching Jean-Claude's kids private lessons at my school for a while.
Oh, that says a lot. Van Damme's kicks were really good. So, but you had, what did he like about your kicks though? Because his were very picturesque, right? He had very clean lines, but did he like your power?
My kicks were known for speed. My hook kicks, like when I used to compete in tournaments, I used to score with front leg hook kick. And I would catch people coming in with the back fist. My hook kicks were faster than normal people's back fist. So that's how I used to like score a lot of points. And I think, he liked my speed, I think.
Can you talk more about your sparring techniques? Front leg hook kick. What else is in your arsenal?
Front leg hook kick, axe kick, because at that time, not too many people have seen axe kicks in the United States. So I used to score a lot with axe kicks. Yeah.
Were you compete? I mean, why didn't, was it just not a standard kick in American Taekwondo at the time?
Well, I wasn't only competing in Taekwondo tournaments. I
Oh,
was competing in open style tournaments in a point system too, because I used to compete in forms. So yeah, so when I used to compete in American Open style, that's where I would use axe kicks, and like they haven't seen those kind of stuff. And yeah, I used to score a lot.
how long does it take? How long does it take a people, a group of people to catch on to a kick and adapt? Something like, an axe kick. Were they adapting fairly soon?
There's a I don't know whether you ever heard of him. There's a guy named Bernice White. He used to be at LAPD and he used to compete. I think he fought Bill Wallace, and it's one of the old timer. And I was fighting him in a tournament, and I threw a axe kick and scored a point on him, and I won that tournament. And then I don't know, maybe a couple of months later, I had to fight him again, and I tried to use an axe kick, and he goes, "Simon, your axe kick's not going to work on me today." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, it's simple. All I got to do is a high block, and you're gonna miss me with your axe kick." And sure enough, I tried to do an axe kick, and he's simple high block, and I missed. Yeah. So I mean, people who fought me, and they figured it out right away.
Before we get to best of the best two, I was hoping you could talk about 1992, and because some of the later best of the best films and your film you worked on Straight Outta Compton as well. Um, what was your perception of what was happening? Were you living in Koreatown during the LA riots?
I sure was.
Are you willing to talk about that? Because I would love to know about your experience and how you perceived what was going on.
Ooh. this might make some people upset, but I'm gonna say it. Yes, the riot broke out, and a lot of Korean liquor stores burnt down in South LA. And the reason for that was because there was a girl named Latasha Harlan, I believe, and she was stealing an orange juice, and then she got shot by the Korean liquor store owner lady. What upsets me the most is that she put the orange juice, the owner said, put the orange juice down. So she put it down, and then she grabbed this store owner who's like 50, 60-year-old woman, and she started punching her. And they showed this on Korean news TV. But in American channels, nobody showed it. And so when Natasha was walking out, the lady was like dizzy and went for the gun, and she went like that, and then gun went off and shot Natasha in the back of the head. That's how she got killed. And I understand it's wrong to shoot a young girl, but at the same time, they never showed the part where this 15-year-old girl was just punching the hell out of this 60-year-old Korean woman, So I wish news would have covered that a little bit better. When the riot broke out, we were shooting Best of the Best 2, and we had to do a force majeure and stop filming because it was getting dangerous. And then first or second night, an actor named Beau Bridges and James Olmos, they wanted some Korean person to come to LA's AME church because Nightline, Channel 7, ABC was covering the news, and they wanted some Korean person to come and speak for Korean community in behalf. So actor Beau Bridges asked me to come and talk to them. I said, okay. So Beau Bridges and I, we drove together, both drove, and we went down to this AME church. And we went to talk to Ted Koppel on Nightline. And they said, it's too volatile right now. Everything is still burning. I don't think it's a good time for some Korean person to go on a TV right now. So let's hold back. Let the African American, have their saying. So I said, that's fine. So then I didn't get to, go on a TV. And then on our way back to Beau's car, we saw Beau's tires were all slashed. His windows were broken. It was pretty bad. And like when I got home, all the ashes were falling on my house, and it was a pretty scary time at that time.
Do you think that there was concern among English-speaking broadcasters that showing what happened? What do you think the concern was there? Like, why wouldn't they show what happened in the Korean store? What set this whole thing off?
Eric, I would like to know that myself. It's still, I still don't know why they didn't show that.
Did shooting resume fairly quickly after the riots were done?
I think we closed down for a few days, and then we went back to shoot once things calmed down a little bit. Yeah.
Did it make things tense on set, or was everything like back to normal?
I think it was pretty much back to normal. We talked about it, and yeah, did you see what happened? And we just, that's about it. But we had to concentrate on our work, so we just, try to make our work finish.
You have an upcoming film, April 19th, 1992, that you did stunts in, I believe.
April 1990, yes, right. So a friend of mine called me, and I played a cop, and I was like grabbing stunt people who was looting and beating them up. and that was my job. So, and I only worked, I think, like a few days on that.
What was that like, playing that role?
It was really interesting because it was down by Crunch. Are you in LA by any chance?
No, I'm in Vegas.
Oh, okay, so it was down like Crenshaw, South LA area, and they recreated like all the cars from the back in those days, and they hired like a lot of African American and Spanish people, background people, and like it set things on fire and trash everywhere. It looked real, and I mean I don't know how since I only worked like a few days on it, I don't know how the whole movie is, but I would like to see it. And like another interesting thing was straight out of Compton. I worked with that director F. Gary Gray on Italian Job. So he wanted some Koreans, the rooftop Koreans. So he goes, yeah, I'll put Simon up there. So I had to do that, play the rooftop Korean. And about 2-3 months ago, Quantum Leap, it's another TV show, and they were recreating that LA riot. So then they called me up and said, "Oh, Simon, Philip, can you come and play the rooftop Korean for us?" I said, "Yeah, sure." My brother didn't want to do it. He goes, "No, I don't want to do that." I said, "Come on, Philip, it'll be fun. Let's just go do it. It's just one day thing." And Ernie Hudson is one of the lead actor, and I used to teach Ernie. So when we got on set, we did not get treated like a stunt people. Like Ernie came and paid respect to us. The lead actor Raymond Lee, I doubled him before, and he's Korean, so he came and paid respect to us. And then all the showrunners and writers and directors, they all saw Best of the Best, so they all came in. Like,
that's good.
So we got treated really, really well.
That's
so that
good.
was fun.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk more about Best of the Best too. What did it take to train some of the American stuntmen to react to Hapkido throws? Were they already used to action like this?
So yeah, that was all Philip. So Philip, and then he knew this Hapkido instructor, Master Kim. So they put all their fights together. And yeah, when the Master Kim had that long hair with that ponytail thing, yeah, that was the guy. So yeah, so they incorporate all the Hapkido into this fight. And then yes, in the hallways when Philip was fighting all the stunt guys, we hired special stunt people who knew how to do Hapkido falls, so they wouldn't hurt themselves. So yeah, they worked out really well. And I think that was like second or third time that American audience got to see Hapkido, which was a little different from Aikido, which Steven Seagal's been doing, right?
I do want to talk about Steven Seagal a little bit. I'm going to go there. But before that,
okay.
Before that,
I've worked with him too.
Yeah. Was there any sort of conscious thought behind how the action was shot and edited this time? The editing's a little bit faster this time. Was that part of the design process on your side, or was that just the way that the production team was handling the action?
That was all production. After the Best of the Best came out, it was a pretty big hit, I guess, because Fox Studio reached out to Philip and said, "Hey, we'll give you double the money. Let's make another one." So Philip was like, "Oh man, okay." So Philip had to come up with a story, and that's how he. And I mean, I don't know. You tell me, was there like before Best of the Best 2? I don't think there was any movies like that, like beginning of a UFC type of fight. What do you think, Eric? You think that's the catalyst of UFC type of fight?
I can't think of any.
Yeah.
If that might have been the first. I mean, UFC, that is the year of UFC, isn't it? 1993, when that movie came out.
Was it?
I think that was the first UFC, or 1992. So it might have been, yeah. I think it was in the lexicon, but not in entertainment yet, right? It was still just kind of, it was still kind of fringe. It's like, let's
Yeah.
get just two random martial artists together in a ring. Were you guys inspired by that at all?
No, we didn't know UFC. It was way before UFC.
Yeah, I
Because like
guess. Yeah.
you remember in Best of the Best 2, you know, there are no rules. Only rule is there are no rules, and then after that, UFC came out with like there was like kind of no rules.
Yeah. So what did inspire it then? Were you exposed to any kinds of martial arts, mixed martial arts outside of that?
Not really. We just like, oh man, we got all this money, and we got to make a second movie. So I didn't think Best of the Best 2 was good, but did it really have that like heart touching in a moment? And some audience says yes, some audience says no. So it's hard to duplicate. So we made Best of the Best 1. We wanted to make sure that this is how true martial art is. Best of the Best 2, we touched up on like tournament type of fighting, but more violent, more realistic type of stuff. And then Best of the Best 3, if you saw, we went into the racism. We touched up on that because that's the thing that Philip felt at that time.
Yeah, I imagine that became something of a hot topic after 1992. One thing I wanted to ask about Best of the Best 2, there's this it's what I do like about it. Yeah, it's a very macho movie. Like the action is very macho this time. I would say that in the previous one it's more surgical. This time it's more macho. There's a cool part where you're fighting at the end, kind of at the same time as as Philip's in the ring, and you're fighting behind the scenes. You're blasting guys. You blasted a guy into this glass pane in the end.
The funny thing about Best of the Best 2 that I could share with you. So Philip was so busy when he came to Best of the Best 2 because he had to do a lot of fighting now. So he trusted Eric to. He goes, Simon, I want you to train Eric Roberts because I gotta fight all these other people. So I started training Eric Roberts. So there's a scene where we're in a nightclub, and then this guy with a big old, hat, it's like a Texan. He goes, "Hey, boy, where you from?" My only line in the movie is Houston. So Eric Robert goes, "Simon, if you can, I want you to butcher that line." I said, "Eric, why?" He goes, "Just trust me. I trust you when you teach me martial arts. Just trust me when I'm giving you this acting tip." I said, "All right." So when this scene came, that guy goes, "Hey, boy, where are you from?" And I say, "Houston." And I really just chopped it. And I didn't know why Eric wanted me to do that. And the movie comes out many years later. People come to me, "Hey, Simon, Houston." So like Eric knew ahead of time that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's something I got to give Eric a credit for.
That's pretty cool. So Best of the Best 3, you mentioned that you take this new angle, you take the racism angle this time. Was that Philip's idea, or was that the studio's idea? Where was the impetus for that?
I think it was all Philip's idea. And I mean, I love my brother. He's really smart. He's more of a thinking man, So he came up with this idea, and oh my God, people are gonna get mad, but this is the true story. We were in Ohio shooting Best of the Best 3, and we were at this brick factory, and we were gonna blow it up, and we're gonna have a fight scene in there. So the foreman of the brick factory came over, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you could do this. You could do this. Oh, but by the way, you guys got to watch out for chiggers." And do you know what chiggers are, Eric? It's this little bug that bites and it goes inside your skin. And you have to use like a fingernail polish to cover the wound so that they suffocate inside your body. And that's how you could kill it. So anyway, I think it was one of the crew from California, and he looked at me and he goes, "Simon, excuse me, but what's Chigger? Is half Chinese and half black? that's, that's honest. It happened. It happened. So that's a funny story on Best 3.
I gotta say, these films, Best of the Best films, have some of the best soundtracks of the 80s and 90s. Very memorable. I think I ripped off one of them when I was doing Rope-a-Dope. It was at least in the temp soundtrack. With Best of the Best 4, and I know you have some things in between there, but the supermarket fight, or the Quickie Mart fight, were there any inspirations there from Rumble in the Bronx that come out, I think, a year earlier or two?
Oh, did it come out a year earlier?
I think so, yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I have seen Rumble in the Bronx yet at that time. I think we were so, focusing on making Best of the Best 4. I don't think I seen. So in a market fight, it was all Philip. It was all Philip's idea. And and there's a big dude. His name is Ken Clark, and he's in charge of Universal Studios Waterworld, the live action. I think he's in charge of that, and he's became really successful. Like he does a lot of those kind of live action type of shows all over the world now, and he's in charge of that. But he was a big dude, and Philip was going to do a back kick on him, and he goes, "Philip, go ahead, give it to me. I could take it." So Philip goes, "You sure?" He goes, "Yeah, just go ahead." I mean, he had pad on, but so I got the pad, so go ahead. And Philip just gave it to him. And yeah, I think it knocked the wind out of him. He goes, "Man," he gets up, he goes, "Simon, your brother kicks like a mule, man." So yeah.
Was he the one in the motorcycle helmet inside the store?
Yeah,
and that's a nasty kick.
You have a great memory.
That's a nasty kick. Well, I mean, that's like what the impact of it is very different than the Rumble fight. I'm not trying to say that you. I was just wondering if you were inspired by the scenario, but I mean, were the stuntmen, aside from Ken Clark, were they as brave about taking impacts? And what was the culture like with stuntmen at the time regarding impacts? I
mean, depends who came on the show. A lot of the guys, like if they were big guys, they were willing to take hits. They would pad up and take hits. And we had a really, really. Do you remember the Eskrima fight scene? Yeah. We had the best, like Dan Inosano's students. I asked those guys to come and help me if they didn't mind, and they came in, and Philip was able to put together that fight scene, and that fight choreography is all Philip and Mr. Inosano's students, and I love that fight scene. I think it came out really good.
Yeah, it's kind of unexpected to mix in the fencing, and then there's some Taekwondo mixed in with that too, and it's all kind of meshes nicely. That fight's a classic. In general, there's a very, I don't know, it seems like a very sort of street savvy style of action that you guys are going for. It wasn't just pure Taekwondo. You were doing punches to the face. It was kind of a mix of brawling action with the kicks. Was this how you guys always envisioned making action? Because it's different than like the Hong Kong style, which is very posy. It's much more technique based in Hong Kong action than it is in this case.
Philip and I, when we would compete in only Taekwondo tournaments, just like you said, we cannot punch to the face, as you know. So like when they clashed, it looked like two guys, rubbing shoulders. Yeah, exactly. There you go. And I hated that. And Philip hated that. It's like, why can't Taekwondo people use hands? Just that looks like, two guys with no arms. This is terrible. And even though Taekwondo people have beautiful kicks, we didn't like that part of the Taekwondo. That's why we, started changing and putting punchings in there, Hapkido techniques in there, and Eskrima, fencing, a little bit of Wing Chun, Hapkido, And these are all the stuff that we learned, so we wanted to put it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great stuntman, Wang In-sik, in Jackie Chan's films, and then he was in this film called Hapkido. Who, what's interesting is that, well, let me just ask it as a question then. Did you guys learn how to box in your Taekwondo training, or did you have to pick up the boxing separate from that?
Separately. So 1976 or 77, somewhere around there, I was doing summertime. My father took me to Korea, and he goes, so during summertime, I want you to train nothing but boxing. So I was at the Korean boxing gym for like a month. So what I would do is I would do Taekwondo in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I would go to the boxing gym and just practice boxing.
You know, talk about your father. Was he a first generation immigrant? And let's just clarify too, even though he shares the same last name spelling as Rhee is not your father. Was your father a martial artist? Did he teach you?
He did not teach me, but he pushed me into Taekwondo. Reason why Philip and I got into Taekwondo is because when I was like 8, I came down with a viral meningitis, and I almost died. They said if I came to the hospital maybe an hour or two later, I would have been dead or a vegetable. So when they took me to the hospital, they admitted me right away. And like I remember them putting this big needle in my spine and taking the water out of my spine and stuff. And I was 8 years old and I still remember it because it was that painful. And I was in the hospital for 2 months. And then when I came out, my father said, I'm going to enroll you in Taekwondo so that you get stronger. So I said, okay. So I started going to Taekwondo. And this is one thing that my father told me. He goes, you must go to Taekwondo every day except Sundays. The day you don't go to Taekwondo and you want to play with your friends, you have to get spanking first. Then you could play with your friends. So, kid, 8, 9 years old, who wants to get spanking, right? So Philip and I, we went to Taekwondo every day. And what we didn't know at the time is like, when you go every day, train hard, you get better and better and better. But we don't see that at the time, So my father already knew that. So yeah, I think I owe a lot of that to my father. And by the way, Rhee is not my father.
Very, very good, very inspirational, brought a lot of kicking to the mainstream, but no direct relation. You're continuing to do stunts in between shooting these best of the best films. One of the ones that stuck out was Glimmer Man in 1996. Was it your idea to fight Keenan Ivory Wayans instead of Seagal?
No, I got picked specifically to fight with Keenan. They didn't want me to fight Steven Seagal. So the first day I was there, our stunt coordinator name was Dick Zeiker. And we had about 10 people lined up. And Steven Seagal would come and check us one by one by one. And our stunt coordinator warned us, make sure everyone's wearing a cup because he loves to come and kick you. So I was ready. And Eric, I did not need that job that bad, So I was already headed in my mind, if he kicked me, I'm going to kick back. I'm just going to make it seem like it was my reflex. And I was just going to throw a kick back because I don't need to take that from him, So he was going one by one. And he came to this guy. His name was Rhee Sua. And he was a LAPD, but he was also a black belt. And I seen him compete in a tournament with me many times. I have a lot of respect for him. And he came to Rhee Sua and he goes, Dick, what can I do with this man? Can I just bitch slap him? And he just, bam, slapped him in the face. And Rhee had to take that. And I was so mad. I was like, you do anything like that to me, Steven, I'm going to kick back so fast, I'm not going to know what happened. So when he finally came to me, he goes, oh, what can I do with this guy? And then the executive goes, no, Steven, you don't have any scene with him. He's fighting Keenan Ivory Wayans. So then he goes, oh, okay. And then he walked away
He
from
was
me.
worried about Steven Seagal's, health.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. Isn't this when Steven Seagal turned Buddhist? And what is he going around slapping people in the face for?
Oh, come on. I don't know why he does what he does. And also, I remember, Chad Stahelski, the director of all the Chan-wook movies, he was with us. And hey, Chad, I want to practice this technique. And he just cranked it, and Chad dislocated his shoulder at the time. So, and I was there that day, and I saw that, and I was so disappointed in him for doing that to Chad, Yeah.
Well, I guess Buddhism could be pretty brutal.
If you say so, Eric, that's not the Buddhism that I know.
Do you want to talk about your work on Blade as well in 1998?
So, stunt coordinator Jeff Ward called me up and he said, "Oh, we have a scene with Wesley Snipes, and I need a guy who could kick really good, and I need a guy who has a real fast hands." So that was Jeff Imada. Do you know Jeff Imada? Yeah. So Jeff Imada did all this, Chikundo. So we both got hired, and we had a nice fight scene with Wesley Snipes on Blade. But then let me jump to about 10, 15 years later. I get a call like 2:00 in the afternoon, and I get a call and said, "Hey, Simon, we need a fight coordinator for Wesley Snipes' movie called Game of Death. Can you come?" And I said, "Yeah, I can." So, "Can you get on a 5:00 flight?" And it's 2:00 in LA. I said, "There's no way I could make that." So I took the midnight flight, and I went to Detroit the next day. And I get on a set, and Wesley Snipes comes to the set. And there was a lot of things that went on that happened before I got there. I guess they fired the director, they fired the first AD, fired the writer. So this producer is putting together a brand new team, and I had no idea. So I get on the set. Wesley comes on the set. He sees me. He bows to me, and he says hello to me in Korean. And Wesley's wife is Korean, and I work with him on Blade. So I'm going, oh, this is going to be great. So Wesley comes up to me and he goes, "Simon, what are you doing here?" I said, "Wes, I'm here to do your movie." And he goes, "You're here to do my movie, but you never talk to me." So I was like, "Oh, okay, Wes, if you have a problem with me, replace me." And he goes, "Simon, I didn't hire you, so I can't fire you." And then he went to our director. And this director's name was Giorgio Serafini. And he was, I think he just came from Italy. I don't think he made any movies in America yet. So Wesley asked him, "What kind of movies have you made?" So he started telling all these movies that he made in Italy. And Wesley just shook his head, walked off the set. That was the first day. Second day, he comes in, and in a script, he has a pistol out, and the bad guy comes and disarm him, and they are supposed to have a hand-to-hand fight. And Wesley doesn't want to do it. He goes, "Simon, I'm supposed to be ex-CIA agent. Don't make my character look stupid. I don't want to lose my gun. I'm just going to shoot these guys." And I'm going, "Wes, the script calls it for you to fight. Your fan wants to see you fight. So what do you want to do?" So Wes was very unhappy at that time because it was dealing with the tax problems at the time. So there were some, there was a lot of headaches making that movie, but at the end, we finally got along and we were able to finish the movie.
Can you talk about what was going on in this time period with the home video market? You know, Wesley Snipes, he blew up as an action star with Passenger 57. He was an actor before that. Um, and interesting that I interviewed Michael Jai White also. It was around that same period when Michael Jai White went from acting to becoming an action star too. It was sort of this, I don't know. I mean, it was this great time for action stars, and perhaps that was because of the rental market. I'm not sure. I'm not really savvy too much on what was going on behind the scenes. What was your perception of what was going on with home video, the martial art genre, and everything like that in the mid to late 90s?
Just like you, I don't know too much about the business side of that, but what I did know about, and I want to talk about, is Michael Jai White. I met him on the movie called Spawn, and I think that was his like first big role, but he had to have a mask on and stuff. So we were trading techniques during our breaks. So Michael Jai White was like, "Hey, show me some of your kicks." So I jumped up, I did a flying scissor kick, and then a roundhouse kick, and then I landed. So I said, "Yeah, so that'll take care of three guys." And Michael Jai White goes, "I could do one step better." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I could take care of four guys." I said, "Really? Show me." He jumped up, he did a scissor kick, roundhouse kick,
You know,
side kick.
sidekick.
Yeah, and then he landed. And Michael Jai is a big guy. He's not a small guy like me. And I was so impressed. I was like, I've never met anyone who could do like four kicks up in the air like you. So yeah, he earned my respect that day.
Yeah, yeah, he's a specimen. uh, so during that time also there was an interesting thing happening, and you were involved in two of these projects where you had a lot of Hong Kong and Chinese directors, action stars, Jet Li, Lethal Weapon 4, Sammo Hung with martial law. You want to talk about, what it was like working on projects like those with these Hong Kong legends?
Mhm. So I think my first time was Charlie's Angel. Uh, was it Wun Wo Ping or his brother was one of the stunt coordinator, Hong Kong stunt coordinator, and he lined up all the American stunt guys and like, show me what you guys could do. So at least I used to compete in a tournament circuit, so and I did some of my form stuff, so I got hired. So that was good. And then when Rush Hour 2 came, um, same thing. They get all the American Asian stunt people, do a Hong Kong twist and hit the ground. And at the time, like we really did not know how to do that. And like nobody wanted to go first. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm gonna go first because I don't know how to do this and I'm gonna fake it. And if I mess it up, by the time they see all the other people, they'll probably forget about me. So I just went and I did it. And I don't know whether I did it right or wrong, but I got hired and we won the best fight scene on a Tauris Stunt Award for that. And then Lethal Weapon 4, when Jet Li came with Corey Yun, I didn't have to audition for that because I wasn't fighting Jet Li. I was fighting Mel Gibson on a freeway. So I didn't have to audition in front of the Hong Kong team. So that worked out. And then when Rush Hour 3 came, Jackie's stunt double, he hurt his ankle jumping out of a car. And I think they had about 2 or 3 more weeks to shoot. So they asked me to double Jackie on Rush Hour 3. And Eric, that was like probably my biggest honor for to be able to double Jackie on Rush Hour 3. And even to today, I treasure that moment.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that Jackie Chan doesn't use stunt doubles, but when he does, they're the best in the world. So when you're working with these action directors, is the action design process something that you're used to? Is it the same that you've been using before, or was there anything different about it?
Jackie's team, they design it right there on the set, and it's incredible how they come up with it. It's like, let's do this, let's do that, and then boom, 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 they have it. So and you have to be sharp to remember all the techniques and choreography that they come up with. So, if you do a lot of forms, because you got to remember the techniques, it helps. But if you're just not a really good form competitor, it might be a little bit more difficult.
After these Hong Kong action directors and action stars come into Hollywood, did you notice any change in the stunt culture after their influences had kind of come into Hollywood?
I think it was after Matrix. Matrix, and also the Sammo Hung's what was that show called? Martial Law. Yeah, Martial Law. I feel like that's when things really started to shift. Like Charlie's Angel has some wire gags, and the wire gags, you really didn't see too much of it. You couldn't tell whether they used the wires or not. But then when other stuff came in, that's when you really start noticing it. And like Chad, after he worked on Matrix, he started teaching all this stuff to his students, and then they became 8711, and now look how successful they are.
Did you ever enjoy doing wire work?
Honestly, no. The worst injury I got was doing a wire work, doubling Jackie.
What happened?
Towards the end of the movie, the Japanese actor Hiroyuki, yeah, and Jackie, they fall off from Eiffel Tower, right? So me and Hiroyuki's double, we grab each other's shoulder, and we're standing facing each other. And then they wrapped us up 3 times with a wire, and then the crane lifted us up 60, 70 feet up in the air like this. So we're not like this anymore. We're like this. So now we're up in the air like this. And on action, I'm supposed to pull the quick release. And we're supposed to unravel 3 times. And we're supposed to split open. So they say, hey, watch out, once you split open,
don't come back.
Make sure you don't come back and hit each other. So be ready for that. So I was prepared for that. So when they call action and I pulled it, we unraveled 3 times, and I was in the bottom, the other guy's on the top, and then the line went, we never split open. Luckily, the line was right below my ribs. If it was higher up on my ribs, it would crack my ribs and probably puncture my lungs. But it was right below, so that the line kind of moved in. So like part of my internal organs got shifted a little bit. So I had to go to an emergency hospital. And so that was probably my worst injury in my career doing wire work.
So what happened? Did he get stuck on top of you? Is that where it failed?
Yep. It didn't work. And then, so finally, so now I'm in a hospital, so they had to get another guy, and they finally worked it out so that it worked.
Well, again, you were the first one to demonstrate the stunt, so hopefully they forgot that you had done it, right? You've done some. I mean, your body of work is huge. We're never gonna get through all of it. Collateral, Red Belt, Black Dynamite with Michael J. White again. He worked on Inception. Uh, I mean, I think Tom Cruise is a very interesting. What would you call him? Like a waypoint right now in the action world, because I think I mean, in my view, ever since Collateral, that's when he really kind of took off as an action star because he was so real in that. Any memories of working with him?
Absolutely. First of all, Stuart Beatty wrote Collateral, and Stuart Beatty is one of my second degree black belt, so I'm very proud of him. And I got hired like a month before to rehearse with Tom Cruise. So we've been rehearsing for a long, long time. And the nightclub scene, so he takes out a few people and he uses me as a human shield. And I'm in his arm and he's got a gun and he's walking. And we practiced that scene many times during rehearsal. But on that night, when the camera's rolling and they call action, he just cranked it. So I took about maybe 5, 6 steps and I fainted. He choked me out. But luckily, he didn't drop me. He held on to me. So like when I woke up, he goes, "Simon, are you acting or did I choke you out?" I said, "Tom, you choked me out, man." And he goes, "Oh, man, I'm sorry. And then our director was Michael Mann. And everyone was kind of intimidated by him. And one night, I mean, I'm wearing this suit and I think I'm wearing some kind of tie. And he's walking by and he sees my tie and he calls the wardrobe department. And he goes, "Who gave him that tie? He's supposed to be a friggin', gangster. He looked like a friggin' CPA. Change his tie." So this wardrobe people, they run away, and 3 people came back with like about 70, 80 ties. And they bring it to Michael Mann. So he picks one and he goes, "Here," and he gives it to me. Eric, I was nervous when he gave me the tie because I'm thinking, shit, what happens if he doesn't like the way I tie it? So I said, "Michael, you like this tie? You tie it." And I gave it back to him. And then he goes, "Okay." And then he started tying my tie.
See, you spoke
And
his language.
yeah, and everyone was like shocked that I made him, tie my tie. So that was like the cool memory of Collateral with Tom Cruise. My other story is with Madonna. James Liu and we worked on Madonna's music video called "Die Another Day," a James Bond movie. So there was a scene where we are putting Madonna on an electric chair and we tie her wrist. And the next scene, we go down and we tie her ankle. And as we were tying her ankle, the director's yelling on a microphone, "Madonna, struggle more, struggle more." And the music's going on. And Madonna had this big old boots on. And all of a sudden, I saw this boots coming straight towards my nose. So luckily, I have a good reflex. I moved back and it skinned my forehead. And I was so upset when that happened. Like, I automatically got into my fighting stance. But before when I got into my fighting stance, she turned to James Liu and she went, "Tweh," and she spit on James Liu's face. And the spit went right to his eye. And I'm going, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening." And James was so cool. Because now the set is like, everyone's like, like tense. So James goes, oh, Madonna, can I sell this on eBay? And just made everyone laugh, you know. So
Nice.
that was another story I would never forget.
What was it like working with Red Belt director? Um, why am I
David Mamet,
David Mamet? Yeah, how was it working with David Mamet?
he was awesome, so calm, knew what he wanted. The thing that I remember about Red Belt is there was this Brazilian guy, jiu-jitsu person. He has not never done a stunts before, and he's fighting Chiwetel, our lead actor, and this guy is grabbing Chiwetel from behind. Chiwetel jumps up, throws a double kick to the guy's chest, and this guy has no chest pad. So I said, "Where's your pad?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't have it." So I remember when I didn't have, pad on double impact. So I said, "Here, borrow mine." So I gave him my pad so he could cover. What I didn't know is like when he took his shirt off, I thought there was another layer of shirt, but he didn't. It was just a bare skin, bare chest, and he put that over, covered it, and they shot the scene. And then after that, here, Simon, he gave me back the pad. It smelled so bad. I couldn't use it. Yeah, that was my memory on Red Belt.
Yeah, I think all of my pads have some stuntman's signature scent on them at some point. And I could probably sell some of them on eBay actually at this point.
I have a harness that Jackie wore on Rush Hour 3. I'm talking
Yeah,
about selling that on eBay. I might
yeah,
be able
yeah,
to do
yeah.
that too.
Can we talk about your work with Christopher Nolan, Inception? Were you working
Hmm.
directly with Nolan, or what was your experience on
I
that?
was hired. I was hired as a stunt person, and Inception. I was hired for 2 weeks, and the first week was all rehearsal, and we were at Warner Brothers, and I mean it was a big scene where uh, the whole castle is just falling apart, water's coming everywhere. And my good friend James Liu and I, we were after we finished rehearsing one week, the following week we're gonna start shooting it. And I'm telling James, there's no way they could shoot this in 1 week. We're gonna be here for at least another, 2 or 3 more weeks. And Christopher Nolan finished it like in 4 days because I think he's genius. He knows what he wants, how to shoot it. I think he's already editing it. So I was like really, really surprised about that.
And Dark Knight Rises. Were you in the mass fight scene at the end?
Yeah, at the uh, Wall Street, New York Stock Exchange area, we had like 600 extras, 300 running this way, 300 running this way. And our job was to make sure if somebody falls down, they don't get, trampled to death, So we were, doing the fights and keeping eyes on the background people, things like that. And it was a great experience working on that.
So that's a huge fight. Were you just doing a long master all day every time they ran a take?
Yeah, and the thing is, I had a pretty cool fight scene, but it was in the back, so it really never made it, on a film. So I was kind of disappointed. So and then I also had to train about 50 to 75 background people, how to do the fight and stuff like that. So that was also my job.
How do you keep track of 50 people on playback? Or that were you how do you even keep track of that stuff? How do you ensure the performance is on point in a scene like that?
Well, the Buster Reeves was a fight coordinator, and he specifically designed like you know this group A does 4 or 5 techniques this way, group B does 4 or 5 techniques this way, and just make sure that they do it over and over and over again, and then they can switch place and do it over and over and over. So I taught them the techniques, taught them how to do it, and once the camera was rolling, I couldn't watch them. I gotta concentrate on my fight. So that was all up to the the camera team.
I feel bad sometimes for background fighters because you watch something like Big Trouble in Little China. Love this movie, but then you watch some of the background fights, and it looks like they're on take 80. They're kind of. These are the guys in the back, right? And they probably know it.
Yeah.
Is there like an unspoken rule that the further back you are, the less effort you need to put in?
I mean, I think it's all up to the individual. To be honest, I'm guilty of that too, because on Lethal Weapon 4, I had that big fight scene with Mel Gibson. So my character was already developed. And they were just using me to do some fight scene in the background. So I didn't really put that much effort into it, And then when the stunt coordinator came over and goes, "Hey, Simon, what did you put together?" I was kind of embarrassed because I didn't really put together my 100%. I just put stunt 101, simple stuff, because I knew they cannot see me because I'm already established, and I knew I was going to be way in the back. So, but hindsight, now I know better. You should always give yourself 100%, no matter where you are.
Odds are people aren't looking. It's just some of us are very critical and watch fight scenes over and over and over.
Yeah.
So you doubled Jackie Chan. On IMDb it says you doubled Donnie Yen and Mulan also.
So there was a reshoot of a pickup shot of Mulan, and there was a scene where Donnie is riding a horse like really fast. And Eric, I don't know how to ride a horse. And I tried it a few times, but it's not my thing. And they brought a mechanical horse so that it looks like I'm riding. And the first take, I look so stupid because I'm just doing this, and they're going, cut, no, Simon. So the person who really knows how to ride a horse, really had to show me how to do it. So that was my job on a pickup shot. And so that's how I got my title credit as a doubling Donnie Yen.
My last doubling question. Lee Byung, I don't know how to say his name. Maybe you can correct me.
Byung-Hun.
Yeah, and
Byung-Hun
Genesis. Yeah, and you did. You worked on that action scene too, right?
Yeah, he's like one of my favorite Korean actor, and I feel like I'm really lucky that I got to double all my favorite actors. Who could say I doubled Byung-Hun Lee, Donnie Yen, Randall Park, Jackie Chan. I mean, all the great Asian actors I was able to double, and I'm really blessed. First time he came to G.I. Joe, the stunt coordinator goes, "Simon, he's arriving in LAX at certain time. I want you to go meet him because you're the only one who knows how to speak Korean from a stunt team." So my job was to take him to this Korean suit place so that they could make this special suit for him to wear for the movie. So I took him, and he brought his assistant, and his assistant spoke perfect English. And Byung-Hun Lee also spoke perfect English, and I didn't know that. We didn't know that. So about 2-3 days into me, escorting him and stuff, they said, "Oh, Simon, we don't need you anymore." So I lost that job. And then when the Terminator came, they wanted me to double him on our first unit. And then my good friend Sam Lay, he doubled him on a second unit. A lot of the actions were shot on second unit. And it was kind of good because on the first unit, even though I doubled them on simple stuff, I'd had like a hip replacement surgery about a year before. So like they didn't want me to do heavy stuff. And at the time, stunt coordinator's name was John Stoneham Jr. And like in the beginning, when he wanted to hire me, I told him, I said, John, thanks for trying to hire me, but I have this. I wanted to go to Korea, and there's this orphanage, and I wanted to donate this medical machines to these kids because they really, really needed it. And my wife saw this special on the internet, and she was crying because this pastor takes all the babies that the parents don't want.
Drobox.
Yeah. You know about
Of course,
Drobox.
it's one of my favorites.
Yes. So I told John, I said, John, I had to go to this Drobox, and they need this suction machine so the babies could breathe. So, I don't think I could accept his job because it was during the middle of the shoot. And then John goes, Simon, come here, work, and when you have to go to Korea to do that, go. I'll take care of it. So I was like, you sure it's okay? He goes, yeah. So he let me go to Korea, and I met the pastor, gave him all the machines, donated some money, cried my eyes out because the pastor has a son who's 18 years old, and he's severely, can I say, deformed?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's in the documentary. It's very well portrayed.
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids he has there or had back then when you saw him. It was 20 or so in the documentary.
Yeah, when I went there, I saw babies with no eyeballs and stuff. It's really, really touching. I cried my eyes out, and then I came back and I did Terminator. And then another funny thing is there's a scene where, and then this other guy comes into Earth, and when they come to Earth, they have to be completely nude. So they had me and this one other stunt guy dressed up as a stunt policeman, and we drove out to make sure all the background people were behind us, not try not to look at those naked people, and that was like, so even the stunt job is dangerous sometimes. There's a kind of funny job where you just got to do what they tell you to do. That was one of those things.
What do you one of my favorite action films is Bittersweet Life with Lee Byung-Hun, and the Korean action scene has taken off quite a bit. It's really been going strong for about 25 years now. What's your perception of the Korean action genre, and is there anything that we can learn from it in America?
I guess this is just my opinion. You know how back in the 70s and 80s, the Hong Kong movies were using wires and, over exaggerated. I feel like Korean cinemas and Korean action is like, everything is like more believable, more realistic. They don't use, they do use wires, but not that much. Everything is like, they really want to make it believable that it's real, unless it's that different type of movie where you could use wires for science fiction or things like that. And that's one thing I like about Korean cinemas, and when they shoot action scenes like fight scenes, it seems so real. It doesn't seem like, even though it's choreographed, it doesn't look choreographed, and that's what I like about Korean action films.
So many Korean stuntmen made it big in Hong Kong. Like Casanova Wong, Hwang Jang-lee, and these amazing stuntmen who are like quintessential Hong Kong stuntmen. They're like adopted in. And yet in Korea, they never really went for that style, right? Even though all these stunt guys, like, I would assume they brought all that stuff back to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Was this a product of the 80s and 90s and the park regime? Did it have something to do you think it had anything to do with the politics going on, or was this just sort of how martial arts worked in Korea and that lent to the action style?
I think latter. Yeah, the I don't think they liked that Hong Kong style that much. And if you don't mind me, I want to talk about this special Korean stunt people. About 10, 12 years ago, I'm teaching a class and I get a phone call. And it's a taxi driver from LAX, and it's a Korean taxi driver. So he goes, "Are you Simon Rhee?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, this guy named Alex wants to come and see you." And I said, "Who's Alex? I don't know this guy." He goes, "Well, he just landed from Korea and he said he must see you." I said, "Well, here's my studio address if you want to bring him." So the taxi driver brings him to me, and I see this Korean young man. So he goes, "So I won this stunt award. I won 2 Tauris stunt awards, one for best fight and one for the best fire stunt." And I think he saw that and he wanted to come and learn from me. And he goes, "I saw you on Korean TV. You live in America and you won all these awards, and I wanted to come and learn from you." And I said, "Look, you're already established stunt person in Korea. What can I teach you? You're probably already a black belt in Taekwondo anyways." And he goes, "It doesn't matter. I just want to, I got a 90-day visa and, I just want to come every day and learn from you." So I said, "Okay." So he started taking Taekwondo lessons from me, and I took him to some TV sets that I was working on. And so he learned something. And then a year later, he brought 4 or 5 guys, and they stayed with me for 1 month, and they learned Taekwondo from me, and they saw a couple of other stuff that I was doing. And then about 3-4 years ago, I had to go to Romania to shoot a movie called The Doorman with Ruby Rose. And I couldn't bring American stunt people because we didn't have the budget for it. But I was able to bring this out of like 5, 6 guys. I was able to bring 3 Korean stunt guys, and they came and they helped me out tremendously on the movie called Doorman. So if you get a chance, go take a look. Not a great movie, but it's a fun movie.
What do you think the Korean action style is? How would you describe it?
Realism. Make it realistic as possible. I mean, I was just watching this Korean show called Mask Girl. It's on Netflix, and it's 2 old ladies fighting, and it looks so real. And also Korean actors will, like American actors will not get slapped in the face. They'll cheat and use a camera angle. But in Korean actors, they will get slapped in the face, to make it real. And Korean actors would go much, much more than what normal American actors would, do for the action scenes. They would hit the ground, and things like that.
Why do you think that is?
To please the audience. Yeah. To make sure that, it's not fake.
How do you define realistic action? Because sometimes realistic action is very boring. Like if you watch a real fight in the streets, it can be kind of boring. It takes a long time, and eventually they just walk away. It's not very cinematic. How would you put your finger on what a realistic action scene is, and how would you build one?
I would probably use a little bit of less martial arts, because if you use too much, then it becomes like a martial art fight. So by mixture of like a street fight technique, but just a touch sprinkle of martial art. Because I mean, in Korea, so many people do Taekwondo, so when they throw kicks, we buy it, So I think that's the difference. It's like sometimes when you see American or Japanese or Hong Kong style, when you see them fight, it's like almost like it's all martial arts. And I feel like in Korean action scenes, it's not all martial arts. Some of it is just like grab, punch, bite, scratch, pull hair, and a little bit of martial arts. And I think that what makes it a little bit more realistic, in my humble opinion.
What do you think it is then that, because as an American, I love my Sammo Hung and my Hong Kong cinema. I love my late 70s Hong Kong action, like Secret
I
Rivals.
I do too.
I love it because I love the shapes that the movements make. It has zero reality to it. It's not about reality. Maybe that satisfies a certain, I don't know, some kind of requirement in my life that's satisfied by that kind of action scene. But then there's like this other satisfaction I get from watching like a Don Lee action movie where he's just one punch man, and if he can touch you, you're done, right? And
Hmm.
that's very satisfying. When you take something from, I mean, you could make the case that a lot of Korean action and is inspired by Hong Kong action, and there's probably some truth to that. But they didn't copy all the aesthetics. It's like they just took some flavor of it, and it's fully Korean, right? And then there's some
Hmm.
American action, like you could probably argue John Wick is like that, where Chad took a lot of Hong Kong and Japanese aesthetic, the Japanese shooting style, the Hong Kong kind of pacing, but then he put this American flavor on it where like when you watch John Wick, you really feel like you're watching an American movie and it doesn't look like it's trying to pretend to be something else.
Hmm. I coordinated this Korean movie called The Carter. Have you seen that on
I've seen it,
Netflix?
yep, yep. Action's wild.
That same director did a movie called Villainous. Did you see that movie? Do you remember that motorcycle scene in Villainous? Right? Chad liked that scene so much, he called the Korean director and said, "Hey, I want to do this motorcycle scene." And the director said, "Yes, please do it." You know, so I love the fact that Chad was gentleman enough to call him and got get his permission to do that. So
Very cool.
I thought that was really cool. Yeah,
There's some really long shots in Carter, especially in the opening. Are those are there hidden cuts in there?
absolutely. When the director came to United States to shoot few scenes, he said that Netflix gave him a certain amount of money and just ton and tons of action. Didn't care about the story. They just want a lot of action and try to make it look like everything is Warner. So, if you look at it, it kind of looks like everything is Warner, but of course, there's hidden cuts there. Uh, you seen Old Boy?
Mm-hmm.
I had a chance to work with director Park recently in the United States. They were shooting a HBO TV series called Sympathizer with Robert Downey Jr. and all these Vietnamese actors. And director Park was one of the showrunner. So I got to see his style, and it was pretty cool. He, so I was coordinating because the original stunt coordinator caught COVID, so I was covering for him. And then a couple of weeks after that, uh, I was doubling one of the actor, and it was supposed to be a simple scene where this young Vietnamese actor comes and pushes this older Vietnamese actor to the ground and just shoot him in the face with a gun. So coordinator goes, "Simon, can you double this actor for me?" I said, "Sure, no problem." And when I got there, director Park goes, "Oh, I don't want just him getting thrown. I want you to create 1 minute fight." So we had to create like 1 minute fight right there and then and show him, and he would critique you and like, "Okay, I want this, I want that, I don't want this," you know. And we shot this scene like the simple scene turned out to be like the whole night of the fight scene, and yeah, that's how first time my experience working with Director Park, and it was amazing.
What does he look for when he's making action?
It's interesting because he set the camera. He did not move the cameras at all. So I was like, wow. So I think he wants to see the whole thing. And only time that he started moving cameras when the gun was, going towards the guy's face. That's when the camera moved. But the fight scene, wide, pretty far away, see the whole thing. That's the way he shot it. 10 times. Just same thing over and over and over. And I don't know what he was looking for, but I remember doing it like 10 times.
Is he planning on cutting that in with other angles?
I don't know. I'm sure he had 2 cameras. I know that for a fact. So I know one of them was a little bit tighter. One of them was completely wide. And I know they never moved. So let's see how he puts it together when he comes out.
You mentioned you had 2 Tauris awards. Which one were those so that I want to plug those?
Rush Hour 2, best fight scene. The massage parlor scene with Jackie and Chris Tucker. And then my other one is Best Fire from Letters from Iwo Jima with Clint Eastwood. I set my whole body on fire. And, there was a few other fire burns, but since they shot me from the top and the flamethrower from the top and the whole fire came down, hit my face first. And then...
When you were working with Jackie's crew on that massage parlor fight, was that Jackie's stunt team kind of running the show? Or what was the action process there?
Oh, Jackie. It's 100% Jackie. He would, I want this, I want that, boom, boom, boom. And then his stunt team guys would come up and, they would, do it. And then, they would throw in some ideas, but it's all Jackie. You got to give it to him.
It's a great fight. So the synergy then with him and his team is that, are they kind of able to read his mind and figure out what he wants moment to moment? Mm-hmm. Was that, when he gets to set, is it just like he kind of knows what he wants, or what's the process for coming up with everything?
I don't know. he I don't think he knows until he gets to the set. And once he comes to the set, he starts creating it. And I think he's been doing it for so long that they just come up with it right away.
Yeah.
But they use everything in the room. Oh, with that chair we could do this. Oh, with the lamp we could do that. Oh, that rolling machine we could do this. They just, whatever's in the room, they'll think of a way to do it, use it.
And what's great about that fight is that it plays like a Hong Kong fight. Whereas in Rush Hour 1, you can kind of tell after that first fight, you can kind of tell that he was fighting a little bit with the production team to get the angles that he wanted, to get the edit that he wanted. And then Rush Hour 2, it really just feels like a Jackie Chan movie. Was there, was production just like listening to Jackie and doing whatever they wanted as well?
Well, yes and no. When it came to a fight, pretty much they let Jackie handle it. On Rush Hour 3, there was a scene where Jack is running in downtown, chasing Hiroyuki. So he jumps to a tree, and then he comes down really fast. So American stunt coordinators were on the upper level of the tree, on the street. And then Jackie's stunt team was on the lower level, and they put me on a wire so that, when I come down the tree. So I asked the American stunt coordinator, how do you want me to go down? Like, do you want me to go down just fast, or do you want me to go down like with more style? So American stunt coordinator goes, no, man, you're chasing this guy. You got to go down as fast as you can. I said, oh, okay. But then, of course, Jackie's stunt team, no, when you come down, I want you to come down, jump here, the Hong Kong style. So I'm going, oh my God, how am I going to please everybody? So luckily, when I jump and when I'm on top of the tree going down, I did it the way American Stunt Coordinator wanted me to go, because the people on the bottom really couldn't see me. And then when I got to the middle of the tree, then I tried to do it the way Hong Kong style, because the American coordinators on the top couldn't really see me from there. So yeah, there was few of those moments where I had to try to appease both sides.
So the real question is, what would have been the Korean style of going down the tree?
As realistic as possible. Yeah.
I always like to ask my guests about fatherhood, if it applies to them, or motherhood. And for you, did having a child change your approach to action films, or did it change your approach to designing action?
No, I'm going to answer this a little bit differently, Eric. Okay. Do you remember that movie Crank with Jason Statham? On Crank 2, they wanted me to audition on a fight scene to fight Jason Statham. And they wanted me to fight him, and then Jason Statham shoves the shotgun up my butt. And I wouldn't do that, because if my son saw me doing that, and then he goes to school, and then his friends go, "Oh, I saw your dad getting shotgun shoved up his ass." You know what I mean? And then there was another movie where I'm supposed to act Korean liquor store owner. And this two black guys come in, they're robbing me. And I get so scared that I pee my pants. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And the director goes, "Oh, it's not going to be a real pee, I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want my son to see. So that's my answer to your question. I would not do things that many years later that my son will see something and be embarrassed about their father. So I don't care how poor you are. I think you should have self-dignity, and for your kids, you shouldn't do things like that. But that's just me. And one thing that my father taught me is that when you're born as a man, there's three paths in your life. You'll either be a scholar, artist, or warrior. So when I was young, my father pushed me hard to study hard. And he also made me go to take guitar lessons when I was young, because just in case, I'd take the art part of the life. And also, he pushed me to take Taekwondo. And I think that's the warrior way. So he wanted me to be ready for either you become a scholar, artist, or warrior. And I think I took the warrior's path because I love Taekwondo. So if there's fathers out there, like for yourself, I think that's something you should teach your children, so that they'll be prepared for one of those paths in life.
Has it changed how you watch violence and how you perceive violence in media?
When I got hired to do American Horror Stories, first episode, they wanted me to shoot a previs, and 4 girls get killed with a knife in a basement. And they wanted me to make it as violent as possible. So every morning, I walk 1 hour every morning, and I'm thinking I'm coming up with a choreography. And I didn't like where my head was going, Eric. So I came home and I told my wife, I said, you know what? I don't think I want to accept this job. Even the 6 months guaranteed job. I said, I don't think I want to accept this job, because my mind is going to a dark places because I have to kill 4 women. My beautiful, very smart wife goes, honey, how many guys have you killed using martial arts in a movie? I said, yep, you're right. She goes, did you ever kill anybody for real? I said, no. Okay, are you really killing these ladies? No. So she goes, look, it's just a job. And you gave them your word that you'll do it. So do it. And the next season, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But always, be honorable. So I took the job. I did it for 6 months, and I got along with people. It's so different from doing martial art movies, Eric. And your mind goes to a different creative side. And now I'm really enjoying that.
Is there a way to make that kind of violence? What would you say? I mean, look, there's violence for violence sake, right? If somebody says, kill these girls in the most violent way possible, well, you could do it in a very mean way that's going to be very dehumanizing, and maybe it's going to make people sick, and it's going to make people not like the movie or the show. Well, how do you do it so that the people watching it keep watching?
Unfortunately, there are people who like to see that kind of violence, and I'm just following what the writers wrote. There was one episode, Eric, that I was reading the script and I almost vomited reading a script, because it's like this town everyone came down with a smallpox, and people who are not sick with the smallpox has to go to this lady and suck on her, boil, and suck the pus and drink it. Then you don't catch the smallpox. See what I mean?
Why would you write that? I'm sorry.
I was like, holy moly. But then the funny thing is, like,
I want to see that previs.
I didn't have to previs it because it wasn't an action scene. But then the funny thing is, like, okay, how are they going to do this? What kind of pus are they going to get, And they went to those baby banana jar, and they used that so it's edible. So it's very creative if you think about it.
Yeah.
But so those are the things that I'm learning now instead of martial art things.
Are you able to, after doing a day of people sucking out pus from wounds, are you able to go home without bringing that home with you? And how do you do that? Like, how do you get rid of that?
Because now, by having a prep meetings, so we talk about how we're going to do this, and then the makeup department, special makeup department, prop department, they all come up with these answers. So you're kind of like, oh, so they're not going to use real blood. Oh, they're going to use the banana food, So you just kind of get desensitized, and you just go with the flow after a while.
No pun intended. Well, Simon, thank you so much. This has been incredibly informative. I love what you've done as a filmmaker and as an actor and stuntman, because, when guys like me were watching Best of the Best, what I saw was, clearly this is not a high budget, big Hollywood movie, but it had a lot of heart, and it had people doing making action in ways that it felt very indie. It felt like something that we could do. And I don't see race very much because I'm like 45 ethnicities, so I don't associate with like Asian, white, or anything like that. What I associate with is when I see somebody or a team of people doing something and just getting it done and doing something very unique. And I think that it inspired a lot of us, not just Asian Americans. I think it inspired everybody. And you know, a lot of us came up watching films like Best of the Best and took a lot of inspiration from that. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And I want to thank all the fans from all over the world. I still get a lot of fan mail saying, you know, after people seeing Best of the Best, oh, because of the movie I started doing Taekwondo and things like that. So I'm glad that it touched people in a positive way, and that's what we wanted to do. And you know, when we made the movie, it really wasn't a big hit. But it's taken, you know, 20, 30 years later, people are still talking about it. So that's the part that I'm really fascinated by. And I want to thank all my fans who loves that movie. And I want to thank you for having me today, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. Action Talks is available on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Join my Telegram at t.me/Eric Jacobus. You can check out my studio at superalloyinteractive.com. My website and blog is at ericjacobus.com. And be sure to subscribe. Thank you.